This is a real face. Animals keep their true faces, but people put on masks. Masks have been used by people in different cultures in different ways. For example, in ancient Greece, masks were used in theater, in amphitheater, because the spectators couldn't see the expressions on the faces of the actors, so the masks were used so that they could see the expressions of smiling or crying. And from far away, a spectator could see what's going on. Nowadays, of course, we have the cameras and we have the zoom, so we can see the face and we can see the expressions of tears falling down, or smile, or a desirous expression, or whatever, desiring expression. So there are so many expressions that actors can invoke, and all these expressions can be well documented, well seen by the viewers when we have a good zoom. In Japan, in the traditional theater, kabuki and no, masks were also used. But also the Japanese makeup is very reminiscent of a mask. It looks very much like a mask. Traditionally, the white makeup almost covered completely the woman's face, so one couldn't guess how a woman looked. And nowadays, I think the makeups are still very strong in Japan and also in Korea and some other countries, but they are, of course, more natural. However, they are very, very strong, and they cover, of course, the blemishes of the skin, and they perhaps disguise the age of a woman, etc. However, I wouldn't say that this is a kind of a dishonest thing to do, to put on a mask of a makeup, because it's a process of beautifying oneself, just like putting on nice clothes, or combing or brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, you know, just making yourself more presentable because one wants to look nicer and just be simply accepted by the society at large. The masks that I have a problem with are the masks of pretending that we are someone else than we really are. This is true especially for people who are authorities or considered to be authorities on some issues. So politicians, doctors, lawyers, people who judge others, people who are who teach others, teachers. When a teacher stands in front of the students and the student asks a question that a teacher cannot possibly know the answer to, and the teacher pretends to know and says, well, you know, this is how it goes. It is a mask that I think it's a very harmful mask, because it misleads people, makes us believe someone who doesn't really know. It's a kind of, we are following a person who is blind. We are being led by a blind man. You know, if doctors didn't say, oh, this is your problem, let me operate tomorrow, then we wouldn't have many unnecessary operations. And if lawyers didn't say, okay, you are guilty, and you know the judges said, okay, you are going to jail, we wouldn't have people incarcerated for no good reason, or even, as we know, often killed for no reason. And of course, we wouldn't have politicians going to war with other countries because they believe that their ideals, their positions are right, and the other countries' leaders are wrong. Some of the famous scientists of even modern era have maintained their beliefs as truth and committed great errors. For example, Descartes, René Descartes, he believed that animals are just machines, and so he cut them open and removed their vocal cords so that they wouldn't scream when they are cut open alive. And of course, committing such atrocities on dogs and cats, it's unthinkable to normal people, but Descartes was sure that he was right, because he was an authority on science. And another figure of authority, a great scientist, to this day believed to be a genius, is a man who said something about being a genius. He said 99% of genius is perspiration and 1% is inspiration. And of course, Edison said so because he believed that he was a genius, and people to this day believe that he was a genius. Being a genius, he shouldn't have invented an electric chair. He shouldn't have tested it on animals. He tested it on elephants. If you want to see a movie how an elephant was electrocuted by Thomas Edison, you can look on the internet and see that horrible movie that was actually shot by Edison himself. So people who are supposedly authorities in science and supposedly smart people turn out to be less clever in other areas and not as compassionate as a common person who doesn't come up with great inventions would be. We're all just ants, and some ants are standing on the hill and some ants are in a place of like a valley in a lower place, but we are still the same ants. The ones on the hill and the ones in the valley are the same ants, and we shouldn't elevate ourselves, but we shouldn't also necessarily worship those ants that are elevating themselves over others. We don't have to prostrate ourselves in front of the figures of authority because they are just people with masks on their faces. So how about you? Do you put on a mask of authority in front of other people, in front of your family members, for example? Do you tell your children that they must follow you, must obey you, just because you are older and their father or mother? And even though you don't really know whether you're right or wrong, you just demand that they obey you? Do you often put on the mask of certainty, the mask of arrogance and power, and tell others that they are wrong and that you are right and this is the way? Or do you tend to be uncertain about things and try to look at things objectively or from various perspectives, try to understand other people's opinions?